Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be sharing one of the most important pieces of information regarding silver prices and where they're headed that you'll probably hear for a while. We all know that silver prices are manipulated, prices are rigged, but I'm going to be sharing an article exposing how price manipulation won't exist for too much longer. The article is titled "The Endgame for Silver Shenanigans." Shenanigans meaning these shady, corrupt, evil bankers rigging the price. Let's look at their solution and why price manipulation won't last for much longer. This is incredible. Here lies the solution to price manipulation. Ultimately, demand for physical bullion, not paper proxies, is the path to ultimately terminating price manipulation. The actual number of bars underpinning the enormous volume of paper silver trading has been in steep decline since early 2021, which is referring to the silver squeeze, which, Wall Street silver may be out of the headlines, but investors are still stacking. You want to know how much? Well, guess what? Reports of stockpiles in the LBMA and COMEX vaults are at 6-year lows. The inventory situation for the exchanges gets even more dire when accounting for how much of the reported stock is not immediately available for delivery because the metal is held by ETFs and private investors. If outflows in the next 18 months match those of the past 18 months, the available physical inventory could approach zero. That is the moment when holding silver IOUs, and which is the SLV, PSLV, all that stuff, will not be the same thing as holding the metal itself. And that's why I always say the statement, if you can't hold it, you don't own it. In such a scenario where talking about the vaults going to zero or these inventories, a default on the futures trading exchanges may only be avoided if prices for silver rise enough to entice the holders of physical bars to part with them. That's a really damning sentence. The only way the exchange wouldn't collapse is if people start selling. And the only reason people would sell is if the price starts rising. So now we have this cycle of price rising, so people want to sell. But the reason the price would rise is because the silver shortage. So let's break this down. Low supply, high demand pushes the price up. Low supply, vaults are empty, pushes the price up, so people sell. And then people sell, push silver back into the market. It's an ever-ending cycle, but I do know one thing. When you incorporate not just the investment sector, but the industrial sector, also given silver's half-life as it's a byproduct, most silver's thrown away, also given that silver is needed for everything as we advance in this new digital technological era, I don't see how this system, this cycling back and forth from prices rising to people selling to fill back the inventory so they don't approach zero is going to hold for too much longer. We've been living on thin ice, and the ice is cracking, and it looks like it could collapse all the way through very shortly. The CFTC may turn a blind eye to the problems on the COMEX, but the physical markets themselves aren't above the laws of physics. And the laws of physics, meaning low supply, high demand pushes the price up. The laws of physics, meaning you can't create physical silver out of thin air. You can on the COMEX. Every ounce of silver you own, 100 other people theoretically own that same ounce on the COMEX. You cannot deny what's about to happen to silver prices, and no amount of fake money you throw trying to hold down the price is going to be able to stop the forces that are soon to come. Silver price manipulation is not a theory, a lie, or a myth anymore. 3 of JP Morgan's employees are getting sent to prison, another for racketeering. Very shady stuff. It's been going on for several decades, not just JP Morgan, the Dutch bank Merrill Lynch, and I'm sure it's gone on much deeper and much more sinister than we could even fathom. These are just the people in the banks that have gotten caught, but just imagine to what degree this has been going on for so long, where people have just been getting away with it. Because remember, it wasn't until early 2020 where they really started cracking down. Before, they would give a bank like JP Morgan a $35 million fine for getting caught. Nowadays, it's $900 million plus you're going to face prison time if found guilty. And that's exactly what's happening, and that's what this article's talking about. But this article goes beyond just the spoofing, which, by the way, spoofing is when these banks or these bankers place false buy or sell orders and cancel the order before it goes through. The tricky part about catching people doing this is you are allowed to cancel buy and sell orders. So how can you prove someone placed that order with the ill intent for that order never to go through? See, they place these orders to basically influence everyone else on the market to think that a whole bunch of buy orders are getting placed, millions of dollars. So then those people on that exchange see these false numbers and start to invest off of that, and then JP Morgan cashes out and makes a lot of money. Now, this all is a fact, but I think the conspiracy still lies within the government's role into price manipulation, holding down precious metals prices, boosting stock prices. I've read a lot of articles about this. I even interviewed Andy Schectman from Miles Franklin. He mentioned this a little bit as well. The reason I wanted to bring this article to the table, though, is because they go into the most important reason I like to bring up spoofing cases or price manipulation cases, because this article goes into why price manipulation will not be able to hold down the inevitable price explosion of silver for much longer, and that's the most important part. A lot of people are going to read articles like this and say, why would I invest into a market that's rigged? Why would I invest into something where the price is manipulated and held down by banks and the government? Well, when we look at silver's true potential, its true value, why we invest into silver even more so than gold, because no matter how much fake money you throw at precious metals or try to boost stocks with that are pegged to the dollar is going to be able to stop silver's natural true value, its intrinsical value, which is extremely scarce as the dollar is collapsing, the same tool they're using to try to hold back silver. It's just not a solution that's going to be successful from these bankers, and I like that at least someone is starting to step out of the water and mention this, especially if we look at the angle beyond just spoofing, but the governments as well. So anyways, let's look at this article, The Endgame for Silver Shenanigans. Link will be in the description. If you like this video after watching it, please like the video. If you think my channel is something you would like to watch again, if you like my content, then click subscribe and click the bell because I do post daily. So the federal criminal trial of JP Morgan executives Michael Nowak, Greg Smith, and Jeffrey Rufo began on July 8th. These senior bankers are accused of running a years-long scheme to manipulate precious metals prices through what is known as spoofing. Actually, it's they're backdating decades. These three guys are just the ones that are about to get sent, but they've been doing this for very, very long. Spoofing is obviously it's a tricky thing because you're placing false buy orders, but you're allowed to cancel the order, so how can you tell if someone had the ill intent to do so? And I think that's why these guys probably do it so much, because they think they can justify in court that, hey, I canceled the order because of this. There's a lot of gray area, but I am glad they're starting to crack down, especially sending people to prison. It's very easy to get a slap on the wrist with a fine, especially when you're talking about fining a bank, multi-billion-dollar banks, or finding someone that works for the bank. But if you actually know that you might get sent to prison, your actual life is affected, you might think twice. It's still going to go on regardless. But it's not that regulators don't have a lot to go on. Investigators had the goods when prosecutors got Dutch Bank to plead guilty and cooperate. And that's what I was saying. It's not just JP Morgan, it's the Dutch Bank, Merrill Lynch as well. So the German bank turned over mountains of additional evidence the FBI used to target two other JP Morgan traders, John Edmonds and Christian Trunz. Those two cut deals of their own and agreed to provide evidence against Nowak, Smith, and Rufo. And I think that's the WhatsApp. They had like a little WhatsApp group where all these people were just basically just bragging about how they crash the market real quick, and then a couple days later it recovers, or they're just all bragging about it. And they showed some of the messages. It was disgusting, because you got to remember, there's other people in that exchange that are getting, robbed basically, and these guys just laugh about it. So at present, regulators don't seem to care much about cleaning up the markets. They appear to have little interest in holding the actual businesses that drive these corrupt trading schemes accountable. The effort is focused on prosecuting a few lower-level crooks while avoiding serious consequences for the bank and its senior executives. JP Morgan, the institution, got a deferred prosecution agreement from the Department of Justice and a paid modest fine in 2020. Now it's the $900 million fine. The bank may continue trading as usual regardless of the outcome of the trial now underway. And by the way, they use silver because silver is a much smaller market than gold, hence it's easier to manipulate the market. The cozy relationship between the bank and its regulators is apparent. The optics are bad, but they have no shame. David Meister served as director of enforcement at the CFTC from 2010 to 2013. In September 2013, his agency ended its 5-year investigation into price manipulation at JP Morgan and declared there was no basis for action. So you can see how the political corrupt side of things starts to tie into this. This is not fair stuff. There's never going to be a fair system. Anytime there's money going on behind the scenes, there's going to be evil, corrupt people doing things, and you could either kick and scream and whine and complain, or you can learn how to adjust and adapt accordingly and realize at the end of the day, silver stackers will get the last laugh, because the inevitable dollar collapsing is something you cannot run away from. So, anyways, the subsequent Department of Justice prosecutions have revealed what a farce the CFTC investigation was, but this failure seems only to have enhanced Meister's career. He left the CFTC just after closing the investigation for a more lucrative career as a Wall Street attorney. Today, Meister is Michael Nowak's defense counsel. The COMEX and the LBMA, the two private organizations operating the markets where the corrupt trading practices occur, apparently have no intention of holding JP Morgan accountable. I think that right there, that sentence, is the most damning, alarming thing about all of this. I could make an entire video just on this sentence alone. Let me read that again. The COMEX and the LBMA, the two private organizations operating the markets where the corrupt trading practices occur, apparently have no intention of holding JP Morgan accountable. You might think physical silver investors would get frustrated and simply throw in the towel, but they haven't. Lower prices and declining confidence in institutions, including banks and government, is driving more buying, at least in the physical markets. And yes, the COMEX vaults are emptied, and that's a fact. I made a video about it the other day. And then, we got the solution. Ultimately, demand for physical bullion, not paper proxies, is the path to ultimately terminating price manipulation. And that's what I was saying earlier in the video, where they admit price manipulation goes on, but when you're looking at demand for physical bullion, not the paper proxies, right, not the SLB, PSLB, that is the path to ultimately terminating price manipulation. The actual number of bars underpinning the enormous volume of paper silver trading has been in steep decline since early 2021, and that's the silver squeeze. Maybe out of the headlines, but investors are still stacking. And that's exactly what I was saying. COMEX vaults are at 6-year lows. The inventory situation for these exchanges gets even more dire when accounting for how much of the reported stock is not immediately available for delivery because the metal is held by ETFs and private investors. If the outflows in the next 18 months match those of the past 18 months, the available physical inventory could approach zero. That is the moment when holding silver IOUs will not be the same as holding the metal itself. In such a scenario, a default on the futures trading exchanges may only be avoided if prices for silver rise enough to entice the holders of physical bars to part with them. The CFTC may turn a blind eye to the problems on the COMEX, but the physical markets themselves aren't above the laws of physics. Low supply, high demand pushes the price up. I mean, wow, what a that article really ended off strongly. It was kind of just, going into this and that, but all of a sudden it just kicked up 10 notches and just started dropping bombs out of nowhere, which I'm so glad they did. So yeah, what do you think about this? I'm gonna throw the question out to you. I threw in my 2 cents. Obviously, you guys know that I understand there's a silver shortage, there's a huge supply deficit. I understand that manipulation will not be able to go on forever, as previously stated in the video. And by the way, I just started reading this as we were going on. It's not like this is new news I just covered. This is obvious stuff if you watch my channel at least, but I know there are a lot of new viewers, and if you are new, welcome. It does get a lot crazier than what things appear. It's like the iceberg. If you ever seen that picture of the iceberg, there's a tip of the iceberg above the water. When you look under the ice or under the water, it's a lot deeper, and it's a much bigger situation. Regardless, as long as you have silver at the end of the day, you're gonna be okay. See, I'm gonna wrap this video up here. If you thought this video was worthy of a like, please like the video. If you think my channel is worthy of a subscription, please subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.